All right, so the last recording for this week will be mating systems, and we'll look at polygamy, which means multiple mates. And so you don't really see that term much in the PowerPoints, and that's because polygamy is actually divided into multiple types, and that's what we're going to talk about now. So one is polyandrous or polyandry mating systems, and that is many. Poly means many, and androus means male. So this is many males and a single female. And so an example of that would be the red-necked phallothrop bird you see over there on the right. And this is very uncommon. This is probably the most uncommon of all the mating types. There's a single female and multiple males. And so the male will actually take on the male role. So typically in birds, the male is the one that is brightly colored, and the females are a little bit duller. But if you look at the picture on the right, it is actually the female in the back, and she is more brightly colored, and she's actually pursuing the male. So the males taking on the role at the nest. The females have larger territories, and so it's almost a role reversal. But this allows the female to increase her output, and by laying multiple nests and then just kind of walking away and let the males take care of them. There's Jacuna back in Florida that does this. So not a lot of birds. It's like 1% of all bird species do this. And it is something you see, especially if you have very few males. All right, the next one is polygynous. This is of all the polygamy, the more common. This is where you have males, multiple females and one male. And under this system, there are some subsystems. One is female defense polygamy, where the males will actually fight over the females. And so here is the bighorn sheep, and you can see a male with a female, and the males will butt the heads to try to control access to the females. So they are fighting physically over the females. The next one is called resource defense polygamy, where they're not actually fighting over the females. What they're fighting over is some resource. Here is a black-winged damselfly, and so they're not fighting for the females per se. What they're fighting for is vegetation where the females lay their eggs. So they fight over that, and they have a good territory. Then the females will come to that territory to mate with that male. And then the next one is lek polygamy, and a lek is basically a site that has no resources, no food, but it's kind of like a dancing territory, a dancing area. And so lots of different animals do this. Satin bowerbirds will do that. If you think about their bowers, those are really kind of leks, where they're doing it, and the females go, and again, the females will get food and whatever and nest somewhere else. Bottom right is one in California. It's the sage grouse. There'll be these lekking areas where the males will do these dances, and all the females. I have a video for this, so I'd like you to watch the video. And then it's not just a bird thing. Mammals do it, and the topi down below is a type of antelope, kind of looks like a hartebeest or wildebeest. But again, they will have these little raised area, usually termite mounds that they stand on, and they're leks where they will display and fight, and the females will watch and then choose the victor and then go off into the savannah and breed. And then there's scrambled competition polygamy. It's just a free-for-all. And what happens is the breeding season is very short. So the males have to do what they can in a very short period of time. And you're not real picky, you just fertilize the world. And actually these are a bunch of eggs in the water, and there's a male sitting up on top of a female right here on the left. And these are wood frogs. And reality is you're just, she's laying eggs and you're just getting sperm in the water, and it's a free-for-all. And then there's this threshold hypothesis, and this is polygyning, but it's taking it a little bit further. So this is a local species. We actually have them in the wildlife sanctuary. And they nest in ponds, and they nest on tules or catrush, bulrush cattails, things like that. And what happens is the males come into a breeding territory. The males get there first, and they kind of fight for space and build the nest. And really, it's about location. So the best nest location would be in kind of in the center, away from all the predators. And then they kind of settle in, and the females come in to choose a mate. And usually, the first female that comes in, she's going to be looking around. And you're going to go for the best male in the best territory. The second female flies in, and she's going to look for the second male in the second territory. Kind of a stomping ground. Well, as you move along, let's say you're the 14th bird that comes in female, and now you've got a choice. You can nest with the idiot on the end. He's got one eye, his broken beak, and his nest is hanging off on the very edge where every predator can see it. So you can be first female on that, or your choice is, I'm going to be second female on the best nest. And that's a decision, because what happens is if you are the first female on the bad nest, but the male's going to help the best he can, and you don't really have any competition. But if you are second and third female on the best male, what that means is that he's going to be defending his territory, so he's not going to have time for the kids. And then he also has 3 little nests. So the problem now becomes that if he's going to help, he's got to help all of them so he can bring less food home. So there's now this threshold. When does it become advantageous to be a second female with a better male? And then there's polygynandrous, which is many females and males. It's a free-for-all. It's an orgy. And so it becomes who is related to who. And this is seen in our local woodpecker, the acorn woodpecker. They have these communal nests, and first-year birds may not get to breed, but they help out their young, and it actually improves their chances of young in the future. We'll talk about parental care next week. So acorn woodpeckers. And then there's, you take it to another edge, there's the brood parasitism, and we see this in cuckoos, European cuckoos. We also see it in a local bird called a cowbird, the brown-headed cowbird. And they lay their eggs in other birds' nests. They parasitize the nest, and then they fly away. And so what you end up with is a different species feeding your young. And here you can see that in the picture on the right. The parasitic birds tend to be hatch quicker, grow larger quicker, and the parents will feed whatever mouth is open, whoever's making the most noise, and whoever gets the most attention. It turns out the eggs often look different, and the baby bird size is different. Are birds that dumb? And at first we thought maybe they didn't recognize the difference. What they realize now is probably they do. But they also found out that the cowbirds are watching. And what will happen is if the bird kicks out their egg, the cowbird will come in and kick out their eggs. So let's say they lay 3 eggs, the cowbird comes in, knocks one out, lays their egg. If the parents decide to throw that egg out, the cowbird will come back and empty the nest, or kill the babies. So they were calling them moth-ear birds. It's like, you do what we want or we take you out. So it's a cruel world out there. And that will end the recording, and that will end the lectures for this